Today, I'm here to tell you one reason why your favorite team will not win the 2024 World Series. Let's start out with everyone's least favorite team, the Houston Astros, and their reason for not winning the World Series is because of home runs allowed. They allowed the most home runs out of any team that was in the postseason last season. So if you're allowing too many home runs, you're just probably not going to win the World Series. That's a big reason why they didn't win last year, and it will continue to be a reason why they don't win this year. For the Texas Rangers, I'm going to be going with starting pitching. The defending World Series champions are going to be struggling in the starting pitching department just a little bit. Max Scherzer's injured until the middle of the season, and so is Jacob deGrom, if not longer, and as of right now, Jordan Montgomery, their playoff ace, is gone, as he's still a free agent. Also, you just don't really see repeat champions in baseball, so that's kind of another reason, but the main reason is because of the starting pitching. For the Seattle Mariners, I'm going to be going with stupid trades. They've just not been doing good trades recently. The Robbie Ray trade was pretty weird, although it wasn't terrible, and along with that, they also had the Eugenio Suarez trade, which I really didn't like. They also traded for Luis Urias from the Red Sox, who's not very good. They just haven't been making the best trades since the start of this offseason, and I just think that that's going to be one of the reasons why they don't win. The Los Angeles Angels. If you can't win with Shohei Ohtani, then you're probably not going to be able to win without him. That's just how it works. The Angels have had the unanimous MVP 2 of the last 3 seasons and couldn't even make the playoffs with that guy, so how they're going to do it without him, I have absolutely no idea. It's just not going to happen. And to finish out the AL West, we have the Oakland Athletics. Okay, moving on to the NL Central, we have the Milwaukee Brewers, and my reason for them not winning the World Series is because of the loss of Craig Counsell. He is just a manager, so does that really matter? Yes, the Brewers have been a ridiculously good pitching team ever since he took over as manager, and I think that that is going to affect them very negatively. The Brewers are definitely a pitching first team, and with Craig Counsell gone, I think their pitching will become worse, and their offense isn't good enough to sustain a loss of pitching. For the Chicago Cubs, I have free agency losses. They lost Cody Bellinger and Marcus Stroman, probably their best pitcher and probably their best hitter, to free agency. They could still re-sign Cody Bellinger, but I just don't think that it's going to happen right now. And even if they do, they still did lose Marcus Stroman, which hurts them a lot. For the Cincinnati Reds, I don't have a super real reason. They've been pretty active on the free agency market, and it's been pretty impressive, but I just think it's a little too early for them. They have a ton of second-year players taking over, and those players just probably aren't experienced enough to win a World Series, and even a guy like Joey Votto is gone, so I don't know. I just think it's a little too early for the Cincinnati Reds, but their time is probably coming. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, I have the bullpen. Ryan Borucki is a decent reliever, but everyone else apart from that, and David Bednar, of course, are just not that great. I just don't like their bullpen going into 2024 at all. For the St. Louis Cardinals, I have age. Nobody can really overcome age, and I think the Cardinals are really going to struggle with it. Their rotation is just extremely old, with Sonny Gray, Miles Mikolas, Lance Lynn, and Kyle Gibson. Then they also have some aging stars like Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. I think the only thing that can really slow down guys like Goldschmidt and Arenado is age, and if those guys are not playing at an MVP level, this team is not good enough to win a championship, so I'm going with age. The Baltimore Orioles definitely have a need for starting pitching, however, I'm going to go with Felix Bautista's injury as the main reason why they're not going to win in 2023. However, I'm going to go with Felix Bautista's injury the reason why they're not going to win in 2024. Felix Bautista is probably the best closer in MLB right now. He's just unhittable. When the Orioles had a lead last year and Felix Bautista came into the game, it was done. They were gonna win no matter what, and he's out for the whole season due to Tommy John surgery, and I just think that that's gonna set them back very far to where they were last year. The Tampa Bay Rays are just a regular season team. I feel like everyone knows this at this point, and they're just not able to outmatch anyone come postseason. Although they have stars, they just don't have enough stars to outstar the postseason teams, if you know what I mean. They do that mix and match thing super well during the regular season, but that just doesn't work that well in the postseason, and they're going to continue to try and fail. Also, shout out Wander Franco for making this team significantly worse. Good job, buddy. The Toronto Blue Jays, I'm going with Robert Herjavec, and it's because he was on Shohei Ohtani's plane. If the Blue Jays had Shohei Ohtani, they'd be in a much better spot. Instead, they don't, because of Robert Herjavec. He stole the plane, so Ohtani had to go to Los Angeles Angeles instead. I'm sorry, Blue Jays fans. Don't blame anyone but Robert. The New York Yankees are a pretty injury-prone franchise. They're not the most injury-prone team I've ever seen. However, someone like Giancarlo Stanton is so expected to get injured that even the Yankees general manager expects him to get injured. They also have guys like Carlos Rodon, who's due for an injury or two, and they have guys like Anthony Rizzo and DJ LeMahieu, who have not been able to play full seasons in a while. The New York Yankees are a great team on paper, and if anything is going to slow them down, it's their injury bug that they have every single year, so apart from that, I really don't know what else to say about them, so it's just because they're injury prone. And finishing out the AL East, I have the Boston Red Sox, and it's because they simply don't want to. If they wanted to, they could have signed Yamamoto, Jordan Montgomery, or even Blake Snell, but they don't want to do that, so they don't want to win. Thanks, ownership. Thanks, John Henry. I definitely don't have any issues with you. I'm definitely not a salty Red Sox fan. Don't worry. I love John Henry. He's my favorite. Starting out the NL East, I'm going to be going with the Atlanta Braves, and the main reason why I can't see them winning the World Series is just because of the Georgia sports curse. Everyone knows the 28-3 collapse the Atlanta Falcons had in the Super Bowl, and just the Atlanta Braves just choke a lot in the postseason. Even when they should win, and they are probably going to win, they usually collapse and don't. So it's probably just going to continue, because that's the only reason why they won't win the World Series. They're the best team on paper by a lot. For the New York Mets, I have the NL East, because the division is just too strong for them to survive. They're a young team, they're not terrible on paper, but I just don't think that they're good enough to make it out of the NL East. Realistically, that's the biggest thing holding them back. If they played in like the AL Central, they'd probably win the division, maybe. I don't want to say probably actually, but they could win the division if they played in a worse one. However, they don't, so this is what's going to stop them. For the Miami Marlins, I have offense. The pitching is really great, but the offense lacks star power. The offense has a couple of decent players like Jazz Chisholm and even Jake Burger, which who knew that Jake Burger was going to be a good player? That's the weirdest thing I think I've ever said in my whole life. But they do have a couple of okay players, but it's just not enough star power. They lost probably their biggest offensive star in Jorge Soler, unless you want to say Luis Ariz is a bigger star, but I don't know. All he does is hit singles, Soler hits homers. It's a toss-up, but either way, they did lose one of their biggest offensive stars, and they haven't replaced him, so I'm definitely worried about that offense. For the Philadelphia Phillies, I'm going to be going with pitching depth for their bullpen and rotation. Their top guys in both are great, but as it gets lower down the list, it gets worse, which is the same as every team, but it's worse for the Phillies. Their 4 and 5 starters just aren't very good, and the low leverage relievers just are not what you would expect from a World Series winning team. However, the closer in Jose Alvarado and the 2 top pitchers in Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler are all great. So it's just the depth that's the issue for them. For the Washington Nationals, I'm just going to be going with 3 pitchers: Patrick Corbin, Steven Strasburg, and Max Scherzer. They take up over 50% of the Nationals' total payroll, and it's a big reason why they're currently rebuilding and not spending money to help out their current team. If they didn't sign those massive contracts, they'd be in a better spot right now. For the Los Angeles Dodgers, I have Shohei Ohtani's UCL and just the overall health of the pitching staff. The Dodgers are a great offense, and they'd have a great pitching staff if guys like Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, Shohei Ohtani, Joe Kelly, Dustin May, the list just continues. If they didn't always get hurt, they'd be a great staff too. So it's just the pitcher's health. For the San Diego Padres, I have bankruptcy. They ran out of money and they had to trade Juan Soto away, who's a top 5 player in baseball. So if they didn't go bankrupt, they'd probably have Juan Soto, which would make them a much better team. That's the reason why they're not going to win. For the San Francisco Giants, I just have the simple fact that they cannot land a big free agent. Over the past 2 seasons, we've had Arson Judge, Carlos Correa, Yamamoto, and even Shohei Ohtani. They've been trying to land these big fish free agents, but they just can't do it, and it's why they're not winning games right now. For the Colorado Rockies, I have pitching struggles, and part of that is because of the field that they play in and their ridiculously high elevation, so they're never going to be a good pitching team, and part of it is because they just don't have pitching talent. You can't be a good pitching team when you play in the most hitter-friendly ballpark, and you can't be a good pitching team if you don't have pitching talent. The Rockies have both of these issues, and they're both of the reasons why the pitching is bad. For the Arizona Diamondbacks, I'm just going to be going with 3 other teams that are just slightly stronger than them right now: the Phillies, the Dodgers, and Braves. Now, I know that the Diamondbacks did eliminate both the Phillies and Dodgers last postseason, so maybe this is a stupid take, but but I think that the Phillies, Dodgers, and Braves are all just a little bit too strong to assume the Diamondbacks are going to win the World Series this year. For the Minnesota Twins, I have the back end of the rotation. If you look at their depth chart on MLB.com, they literally don't even have a 4 and 5 starter right now. It would probably end up being Chris Paddock and Griffin Jax. However, neither of those players are players that I would want in my rotation as of right now. The Cleveland Guardians won't win the World Series because they don't hit home runs. You have to hit home runs to win playoff games, and the Cleveland Guardians just don't do that. Jose Ramirez obviously will hit his fair share of home runs. Josh Naylor will as well. But apart from that, guys like Steven Kwan and Miles Straw are literally two of the least powerful hitters in baseball. I mean, I think literally 2 whole years passed in between Miles Straw home runs. That's just insane. You just can't have a guy like that starting on a World Series winning team, even if the defense is as good as his is. The Detroit Tigers actually have an extremely competitive team. They have a really solid bullpen, a really solid rotation, and a really solid offense, but I think the thing that'll hold them back the most is the fact that they strike out a lot on offense. Someone like Javier Baez, who literally strikes out on pitches that are in the other batter's box, is definitely not going to help your team win World Series. However, like I said, they're a really solid team, and they are definitely one of the biggest sleeper teams going into 2024. I could see them winning this division. Their rotation and bullpen is really solid. For the Chicago White Sox, I have infielders besides first base. Andrew Vaughn is their first baseman, and he's a solid player. However, their catcher is Max Stassi, bad. Their second baseman is Romy Gonzalez, bad. Their third baseman is Yohan Moncada, bad. And their shortstop is Paul DeJong, bad. So apart from first base, their entire infield is bad. So that's not going to help them win. And for the Kansas City Royals, there's simply no reason. They've already won the World Series. They've had a great offseason, with the main pickup being the relief pitcher Will Smith. We all know that he's won the past 3 World Series with 3 different organizations. So because history repeats itself, the Kansas City Royals are the 2024 World Series champions. There's no disputing the logic there.